Deaths in Glenmorach Manor, a fiction novel. Written by Shirley, read by Sir Lawrence Olivier. This audiobook was narrated using synthetic voice technology provided by 11 Labs. Chapter 9. The steady ticking of the grandfather clock echoed through the dimly lit room. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. I sat opposite Rosy Taylor, the caregiver of Lord Wallace. The air between us felt thick, charged with the weight of suspicion and unanswered questions. It had been 3 days since the murder of Benjamin Wallace. I had spent the last few days piecing together the fragments of a crime that seemed more tangled with every step. Benjamin had been found dead in the library. A dagger was stabbed into his back. The crime scene was unsettling, but it was the surrounding mysteries that weighed on my mind. And now Rosy sat before me, the second suspect in my investigation. My tone calm but deliberate. Miss Taylor, let's go over the events of the night Benjamin died. Where exactly were you when the murder occurred? Rosy shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her fingers tapping nervously against the armrest. Her wide eyes avoided direct contact with mine. I was in the powder room, Mr. Owen. Her voice steady but faintly strained. After dinner, Mr. Robert and I walked down the corridor. I stopped by the powder room while he continued to his study, saying he needed to finish some paperwork. I nodded, making a note in my ledger. So, you were alone? By yourself? When Benjamin was killed? Yes, I was alone, she replied quickly, almost too quickly. How would you describe your relationship with the deceased? Was Benjamin someone you cared for deeply? My voice softened, but I was keenly observing her every movement. Rosy's eyes flickered, a brief flash of emotion crossing her face. Was it guilt? Regret? It was hard to tell. After a moment of pause, she answered me. I cared for him in the way an employee cares for their employer. He was kind to me, but not in the way you might be implying. I'm just a servant, nothing more. I leaned forward slightly. Nothing more? Miss Taylor, I've been made aware of your affection for Mr. Benjamin. Did you not want to marry him? To become the possible future Viscountess of Ayrshire? I asked probingly, waiting to see what reaction I would see on her face. A faint blush tinged Rosy's cheeks as she appeared startled by my assumption. She shifted uneasily in her seat, clearly uncomfortable with the question. I never expected anything from him, sir, she murmured, her gaze lowering. I cared for him, yes, but not for titles, not for status. I just admired him. She sighed, a mixture of frustration and sadness in her voice. I asked her back. But he didn't feel the same way, did he? I studied her closely, making mental notes. I don't deserve his love. Like I told you, I'm just a servant. I caught a tone of desperation in her voice. You said you were in the powder room that night, but how can you be certain there was no one around? I asked her again. I was in my private time in the powder room, Mr. Owen. And when the door was closed, I couldn't hear or see anything outside the room. I didn't hear any footsteps or anything. But I might be wrong. I don't know. She answered me confidently. Did anyone else besides Mr. Roberts see your whereabouts during the night after dinner? I kept asking her, feeling that she must know more than she was letting on. She answered me confidently. From the dining room, I walked towards the powder room with Mr. Robert, but we separated at the corner where he continued walking towards his study, and I turned towards the powder room. I don't think anybody saw me until I was behind the door. And how did you find out Benjamin was dead? I asked her. The light went out when I was still in the powder room. I hurried myself to get out of the powder room. I always get nervous in total darkness, so I was trying to find candles. Then I heard a loud scream. She continued her story, her eyes vacant and distant. conveying a mix of sadness and fear. I heard people talking in a panic, and I thought to get back to the music room as soon as possible. On my way there, I met Helen standing outside the music room. She is the maid who found Mr. Benjamin Wallace's body in the library. She was shaking and crying. I asked her what had happened, and she told me that she had found him dead in the library. Rosy answered, her words trembling. What was your first reaction when you heard Mr. Benjamin was dead? I asked her to learn of her reaction. I was in shock, sir. I was shaking and speechless. Miss Taylor, weren't you supposed to attend Lord Wallace at that time? I asked her, my tone sharp with suspicion. Rosy's eyes widened slightly, but she remained composed. I had asked Lord Wallace to excuse me so I could go to the powder room after dinner. He was aware I was away. She answered, her voice steady but carrying a hint of defensiveness. And then, what happened? What did you do after you talked to Helen? I pressed, not letting her off the hook. Rosy's hands trembled as she clasped them tightly together. I went to fetch Mr. Robert in his study to tell him the horrifying news about his brother's death, she responded, her voice wavering with the weight of the memory. Miss Taylor, you are a caregiver to Lord Wallace. Don't you think it was more important to attend to Lord Wallace rather than go to Robert's study room? Why didn't you tell the maid to do that? I pressed her, trying to reveal her true intention. I needed to fill the time gap with her story. Rosy's expression tightened, but she maintained her composure. Mr. Robert told me to fetch him if I was ready to gather with the others in the music room. Her voice steady but tinged with defensiveness. I leaned forward, my gaze piercing. Oh, I see. So, you and Mr. Robert Wallace seem to like spending time together whenever and wherever you can. Is that correct? Rosy's cheeks flushed and she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I'm not quite sure what you mean by your question, Mr. Owen, she replied, her voice faltering slightly as her blush deepened. I leaned back, studying her. Were you aware of the secret passage in the library? Rosy shook her head again. No, not until you declared it a crime scene. So you were unaware of the secret passage in the library until I mentioned it earlier. Is that correct? Rosy nodded, her eyes wide in surprise. Yes, Mr. Owen. I had no idea such a thing existed. I see. I leaned back in my chair and made a deliberate show of flipping through my notes. You know, Miss Taylor, I found something very interesting today. A blood-stained handkerchief. Do you recognize it? I showed her the blood-stained woman's handkerchief inside the clear plastic evidence bag. Rosy's face drained of color. I continued while carefully observing her reaction. It was found in Mr. Robert Wallace's study, hidden under a pile of letters and documents in a drawer. The handkerchief had your initials embroidered on it. R. It was stained with blood. Now tell me, do you know how it came to be there? Rosy was silent for a long moment, her breath catching in her throat, her voice quiet but resolute. Yes, it was mine, but I don't remember how it got there. I must have dropped it at some point. I've lost it for some time. It must have just fallen somewhere. Is that so? I pressed, my voice taking on a sharper edge. Whose blood is on the handkerchief? I'm not sure, sir, Rosy admitted. I continued with my question. Have you ever used that handkerchief to clean a bleeding wound? Don't lie, because it's going to be tested anyway, and we'll find the owner of those bloodstains eventually. I just want to hear from you, Miss Taylor. I don't remember, no. I lost it a while ago. I might have dropped it without realizing. She answered me thoughtfully, as if remembering something. You lost it a while ago, and suddenly it was found inside the drawer in Mr. Robert Wallace's study. Why do you think he kept it in the drawer and did not give it back to you if he knows that handkerchief was yours? I mean, he kept a woman's handkerchief with bloodstains on it in his drawer, under a pile of letters and documents. Don't you think it's a bit odd, Miss Taylor? And you claim not to remember when or where. That's convenient, wouldn't you say? I kept chasing her with a barrage of questions. Rosy's face flushed, and she looked down at her hands, now clenched tightly in her lap. I didn't kill him, Mr. Owen, if that's what you're implying. I didn't even go to the library at all that day, she said, her voice trembling. I studied her for a moment before speaking again. Did you previously try to gain Benjamin's affection? Rosy's face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. I was in love with Mr. Benjamin Wallace, but my feelings were not reciprocated. When he showed no interest, I moved on. Explain to me how you moved on from Mr. Benjamin, and tell me, how did you feel after being rejected? Rosy answered, I'm not sure I understand your question, sir, but I moved on by continuing my life working as a caregiver in this house, sir. That's all. About my feelings after the rejection, it was hurtful, but then I was aware of my status and position in this house. I admitted that it was my fault for dreaming too high. I asked her again, you said it was hurtful, but was it enough to make you want to kill Benjamin? She answered, I will not sacrifice my life and freedom for any price, sir. So, no, not enough for me to make that stupid decision. You are a very clever woman, Miss Taylor. I admit I'm impressed that you are very calculated in your every move. Rosy gave me no reaction. She didn't know whether I was genuinely praising her or just setting her up with my next question. I asked her again. After you failed to gain Benjamin's affection, you moved on by pursuing attention from his younger brother. Miss Taylor, do you happen to have a secret relationship with Mr. Robert Wallace? Rosy looked up quickly, her expression one of shock. I don't know what you mean by secret relationship. Mr. Robert and I are just close friends. We've known each other for years. That's all. Close friend. I raised an eyebrow. Is that the real reason now you'd want to make Robert the heir after his brother's death by having a relationship with a younger heir and killing Benjamin? All for the sake of smoothing your path to be the future Viscountess of Ayrshire. Gain a title, a place in the Wallace family. I was bombarding her with a barrage of accusatory questions, all to wear down her defenses and force her to admit her actions. Rosy recoiled slightly, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and hurt. I don't care about titles. I care about Mr. Robert. He's been there for me. I interrupted her with my hardening voice. And what about Benjamin? Did you not feel any jealousy toward his engagement with Lady Stuart? Did that not drive you to do something drastic? Rosy's face darkened, and she bit her lip as if fighting back tears. I didn't kill him. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Yes, I was upset when I found out about his engagement, but I would never. She trailed off, her voice breaking. I loved Mr. Benjamin. I just wanted him to love me back. But he didn't. He never did. There was nothing I could do other than move on with my life. If, then, what happened was I became close to Mr. Robert, it doesn't have anything to do with pursuing him as my next target, like what you have accused me of. And I'm only a servant. I don't think Lord Wallace would allow such a relationship between me and Mr. Robert. Rosy answered slowly, her voice weak as if she held back a sob. I exhaled slowly, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions in the room. Rosy's answers were filled with contradictions. She denied her ambitions, but her actions seemed to suggest otherwise. Miss Taylor, I have to ask you once more, I said, my voice soft but firm. Did you kill Benjamin? Rosy looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. No, I didn't kill him. I swear. My gaze never leaving hers. I'm afraid I must send the handkerchief to the authorities for testing. If you're lying, the truth will come to light eventually, and the consequences will be dire. Rosy swallowed hard, but her resolve faltered. No matter what the test results on that handkerchief would be, I am innocent. I didn't do it. She whispered again, her voice barely audible. I stood up, feeling a sense of finality in the air. I had gathered all the pieces I needed, but something still didn't sit right. Was Rosy hiding something? Was she the killer? Or was she just a pawn in a much larger game? With one final glance at her, I turned and walked her toward the door and said, "I think I'm done with you right now, but you're not allowed to leave the estate until this investigation is finished. Do I make myself clear, Miss Taylor?" She nodded and responded, "I understand, Mr. Owen." Then Rosy was leaving me in the shadows of uncertainty. Part 2. The cool night air swirled around the grand stone balcony, casting shadows over the two figures standing together. Inside, the manor was quiet, everyone asleep. Rosy and Robert stood close, the distant sounds of the night, the only thing filling the silence. They had secretly met on the balcony after the tense interviews earlier that day. Robert's voice was breaking the silence. "How was your interrogation with Mr. Owen? Did he press you on anything?" Rosy was nervously playing with the edge of her shawl. "It was dreadful, darling. He kept asking questions, trying to tie me to things I did not even understand. But there was one thing that shook me. He showed me my handkerchief with the bloodstains on it. I was horrified. I don't know how it ended up in his hands or whose blood that is." Her voice faltered as she looked into Robert's eyes, the fear in her gaze tangible. Robert's eyes widened, but he tried to remain calm. "Yeah, I know, that bloody handkerchief. He also asked me about it earlier." Rosy's voice sounded trembling. "He said he's going to have it tested to find out whose blood is on it. Robert, I'm terrified. How could it be there? I don't even remember losing it." She pressed her hand to her chest, as if trying to steady herself. Robert was thinking hard while rubbing his jaw. "When I saw that handkerchief, it was on the library floor, just after we gathered around Benjamin's body. I recognized it immediately. It's yours. But everything happened so fast. I didn't have a chance to give it back to you or think about what the best thing to do about it. I hid it in my study room. It was my fault." Robert took a deep breath. He was trying to steady his racing thought. "Rosy, do you have any idea how that handkerchief ended up on the library floor near Ben's dead body?" Rosy was wiping her tears from her cheek. I don't know, darling. I don't know how it got there. I didn't even realize I'd lost it. It must have fallen out when I was in the library with Lord Wallace several days before. As I remember, we were not even working in the library at all that day." Her voice shook with uncertainty, fear creeping in as she glanced up at him, hoping he would believe her. Robert's voice hardens, a flash of suspicion crossing his features. "Rosy, you didn't kill Benjamin, did you?" Rosy couldn't believe what she had just heard, the words that had come out of Robert's mouth. "What? No, Robert. Are you suspecting me now?" She responded, tears welling up in her eyes, and her voice was trembling. Robert was just silent, not sure about his feelings about it. Rosy's voice cracked as she stepped closer to him. Her hands were shaking. "No, Robert. I swear I didn't kill him. I would never, and I have already moved on from Benjamin a long time ago. Since we've been together, I only love you, sweetheart." Robert's voice turned cold, filled with frustration and doubt. "Are you telling me the truth? Did you kill him so that you could make me the heir to the Wallace? And you chose to be with me just to gain status and enjoy the Wallace wealth?" Rosy flinched at his outburst, her eyes welling with tears as the weight of his accusations hit her. She stepped back slightly, unable to answer right away. But then the tears began to fall, and her sobs broke through the tension between them. Rosy was sobbing, her voice full of pain. "No, Robert, I didn't kill him. I love you. I told you I've moved on from him. I never thought of anything like that, I swear it. I've never wanted to hurt anyone." Rosy cried in deep sorrow. "I know, I'm just a poor servant. That's how you came up to me with that cruel accusation." She clasped her hands to her chest, struggling to catch her breath as the tears continued to fall. Robert's anger quickly faded as he saw her breaking down. His voice was dropping to a soft, regretful whisper. "Rosy, darling, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that." He reached out to her and pulled her into his embrace. The weight of his fear was making his grip tight but gentle. His voice was quiet now, filled with regret. "We'll get through this together, darling. I believe you. You're not guilty. We're both innocent, Rosy." Robert gently stroked her hair. His heart was heavy with guilt for doubting her. Rosy clung to him, still sobbing, but now with a glimmer of relief washing over her. She sniffled. She was pulling back slightly, looking up at him through tear-filled eyes. "Do you really believe me?" Robert nodded. His voice became steady. I do, sweetheart. You've always been there for me and for my family. I know you wouldn't do anything like this." She nodded, the faintest trace of a smile on her lips as she leaned into him again, seeking comfort in the darkness of the night. The promise of the future was uncertain, but for the moment, they had each other. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other as the world outside seemed to fade away, still and quiet. But for now, they had found solace in each other's arms, even as the storm of suspicion loomed over them.